How's it going, gamers? It's Green Cat Kid. I'm back after almost a month of not uploading anything. I'm very sorry about that. I was busy with Christmas holiday stuff, you know, all that jazz. But I'm back with a new Uber's UU video, and today we'll be discussing Necrozma-Dawn-Wings potentially getting banned. And currently it's being suspect tested, as you can see here from the Smogon announcement post by our good old friend Kind Squared. Now, if you've been paying attention at all to Uber's UU, you would know that the Indigo Disc DLC has shaken up the game quite a bit, I would say, in terms of new drops available to our disposal, with Necrozma being one of them, obviously, as well as Zekrom, which got banned on like day 4 of the January shifts. That was pretty obviously broken, I think. That's not really a hot take, I think. But yeah, onto the topic at hand. Necrozma-Dawn-Wings. Why do people want to ban it? Well, I mean, I'm not gonna read this post out verbatim, but essentially, I mean, it just kind of boils down to there not being a lot of fantastic defensive answers to Necrozma. It's really bulky. You're pretty much forced to run like a dark type on your team, or else you're gonna get washed. It's a bit restrictive on the team building side of things. So we'll be going over my personal thoughts and opinions on if Necrozma-Dawn-Wings is healthy for the metagame or not, if these complaints are warranted or not. And yeah, we'll be looking over at the team builder here. So one of the more infamous sets, I would say, is probably Power Herb plus Meteor Beam. Now, Power Herb, of course, removes the 2-turn limit to certain moves. Meteor Beam being a 2-turn move as well. This pretty much gives you a special attack boost once used. And then of course you've got its 2 signature stab options, Photon Geyser, Moongeist Beam. You can sub out Photon Geyser for Earth Power if you want to hit Migurno super effectively, and also just hit a lot of things in general, since it's kind of funny because not a lot of mons in Uber's UU resist ground. So I actually probably would prefer Earth Power over Photon Geyser, although you can go Photon Geyser for that big stab damage, but generally for coverage sake, Earth Power probably is your go-to move. And Trick Room is a big thing here. Trick Room pretty much gets rid of Necrozma's biggest detriment, which is not being able to move first. You know, it's not very fast. It's pretty bulky and hits extremely hard, but its speed is somewhat lacking. Access to Trick Room pretty much negates this. You'll tend to see Necrozma on a lot of Trick Room teams. In fact, Trick Room has been on the rise almost because of Necrozma being in the tier, because Necrozma works so well in not only setting up Trick Room, but also acting in Trick Room. The Trick Room stonks have increased since then. But yeah, Power Herb, Meteor Beam, probably the best set in my opinion. There are obviously other sets you can go with, like Leftovers, for example. You can go Calm Mind and Moonlight, and then make yourself more bulky, I would say. Give yourself more defense. Moonlight Calm Mind is another set that's really good, I would say. Even without Trick Room, if you set up enough Calm Minds, you can pretty much blow through your opponent pretty easily, I would say. Grassy Seed is also an option here. Where's Grassy Seed? Yeah, Grassy Seed would also be an option here. If you pair this up with Rillaboom, not only do you get a free defense boost, but you can also invest in more special attack, which is really good. Choice Specs is also a good option. Choice Specs is a little less common, but I would still say it's pretty nice to run every once in a while to catch your opponent off guard. Where's Terra Blast? There it is, okay. And then you would run Terra Fighting. Yes, okay. Yeah, but yeah, this set's pretty good. I've ran it before. It catches a lot of stuff off guard. There's probably like tons of things that you can one-shot. Though it's probably not like as preferred, I would still say it's pretty nice, pretty base. I mean, you do have like insane special attack, so you know, may as well make use of that. Oh yeah, and I guess you can run heavy duty boots if you really want. This also has stealth rock too, which is cool. You can run like utility Necrozma. I feel like utility Necrozma is like the least common, I would say, out of the sets I've listed. Like, it's not bad per se, but Necrozma is definitely more infamous for Power Herb Meteor Beam set, I would say, and Trick Room, Calm Mind. But yeah, those are all the viable sets for Necrozma that come to my mind. I mean, there's probably some like other like meme sets that I haven't mentioned, but I mean, they're meme sets, so yeah. Now, obviously, Necrozma isn't uncounterable. I will be going over its counters in the tier, starting with Arceus Dark. Now, if you go to the viability rankings on the forums, you'll notice that Arceus Dark is placed at the very top, next to Necrozma. And should be pretty obvious what that reason is, you know? It clicks Judgment once and deletes half of, if not all of, Necrozma's HP pool. Although either Judgment or Foul Play work, I believe. It shouldn't matter too much. Although I believe Judgment is preferred. Just because Necrozma doesn't want to have a super high attack stat. Arceus Dark can Calm Mind itself. It can also click Taunt, since it outspeeds Necrozma, to disrupt Calm Minds of the variety. Recover as well is really good. And yeah. When you are using Arceus Dark to counter Necrozma though, you do have to be careful about Terra Fairy or Dark though. In that scenario. But yeah. Overall, you with Arceus Dark you have a pretty fantastic matchup against Necrozma-Dawn-Wings. Next up on the list, I have Shadow Ball Mewtwo. Shadow Ball, of course, either with Life Orb or with Nasty Plot Boost, should one-hit KO Necrozma. From what I remember from doing calcs. If not, it should also like do a whole bunch of damage to Necrozma and force a switch out. Unlike Arceus Dark, Mewtwo doesn't quite care as much about Terra Fairy or fighting. Like, it doesn't mind it as much. I mean, Mewtwo is faster. Shadow Ball pretty much takes a massive chunk out of Necrozma. Unless it's in Trick Room, of course. But yeah. Mewtwo is pretty good. If you are in Trick Room, though, I would be careful about being hit with a Moongeist Beam. Other than that, though, Mewtwo, generally speaking, wins the matchup if it runs Shadow Ball. If not, then, well, good luck. Yeah. Alright. Chi-Yu. Obviously, like, completely nukes the frick out of Necrozma with Choice Specs boosted Dark Pulse. In fact, it doesn't even need Choice Specs. It can run, like, anything, honestly. I just put, like, Choice Specs as, like, a meme, but, like, yeah. Choice Specs or Choice Scarf, doesn't matter. Dark Pulse pretty much deletes it. Even if you click Terra, it can predict the Terra and click Overheat and one-shot your Necrozma. Pretty blatant counter to Necrozma, I would say, with Overheat. And, yeah. King Gambit has access to Sucker Punch and Katao Cleave, which can both pretty readily deal with Necrozma in and outside of Trick Room. Now, if you are Terra fighting, the matchup against King Gambit isn't as bad, but it's not as good either if you are Terra Fairy, because you will get bonked on the head with an Iron Head, and that will not be good for you. So yeah, King Gambit usually wins the matchup against non-Terra fighting Necrozma-Dawn-Wings. If it is Terra fighting Necrozma-Dawn-Wings, it's I would say if you are faster, or if you, well, actually, you can click Terra Fighting or Terra Flying and and resist it. Yeah, King Gambit pretty much cleans. It's a very solid counter to it. Zacian has access to Crunch, and it's faster. Plus, you can Terra Dark if you really want to absolutely obliterate it. Although I wouldn't recommend this, as you might prefer other Terras, as opposed to Terra Dark. Zacian is definitely a check to Necrozma, I would say, if you're not in Trick Room. Clefable doesn't really like kill Necrozma, it more so walls it with Unaware. In fact, there are exactly 2 Pokemon that wall Necrozma, which I'll both be talking about. Yeah, Clefable with Unaware, Calm Mind, Moonblast, Wish Protect is probably the best set you're gonna get against Necrozma-Dawn-Wings. You can... should you Terra Dark? I mean, Terra doesn't like matter too much, honestly. I just put this here as like filler. I don't know. Well, maybe you could. Go Terra Dark and resist both Ghost Psychic Stab. But yeah. Unaware Clefable is pretty good against Necrozma. It's one of the 2 walls against it. So yeah, that's why it's good. Blissey, obviously, walls Necrozma-Dawn-Wings. I mean, it's Blissey, dude. It's the premier special wall. A Pokemon that's known for walling special walls, or special attackers, is gonna be really good against a Pokemon that uses its special attack. What's also really good is that it has the combination of Shadow Ball and Calm Mind and Soft Boiled and whatever 4th move slot you want. Could be Tay-Wave if you want to like really dent Necrozma. Pray for Parahacks and whatnot. But yeah, this set is pretty much standard for Blissey just to deal with Necrozma. If it doesn't run this set, you're gonna have a pretty hard time, I'd say, against it. If you're an absolute gamer and you run Psyshock over Photon Geyser, then you absolutely nuke this thing pretty easily. But if not, well, good luck winning the Stall War. That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, Blissey is pretty good Necrozma counter. If it doesn't run Psyshock. Oh yeah, and I should mention, Clefable loses to Specs, Necrozma, I believe, because it doesn't care about the Unaware whatever. Yeah, Clefable loses to Specs, Blissey loses to Psyshock. These are kind of rare, but like also kind of not. You do have to worry about those, because if Necrozma does run either Specs or Psyshock, it's pretty much GG's for you. In fact, maybe Psyshock might be also really detrimental against Clefable too, if it's special bulk. But it's especially really bad against Blissey, since it has no defense. But yeah. So now a bit more of an obscure counter to Necrozma, I would say. But I would still say, sorry, not counter, check. Gotta keep in mind the terminology here. These are checks, not counters, technically speaking. But a bit of an obscure check to Necrozma-Dawn-Wings. That being Dragapult. Obviously, it needs to run Specs in order to pull this off. But Specs boosted Shadow Ball, I believe, one-hit KOs Necrozma if it ever gets in safely. Obviously, keeping in mind without Terra. Dragapult's a bit of a more fringe option, I would say. It's kind of fallen off, like especially after the Indigo Disc DLC. It is still usable, of course, but it's a bit more niche, especially like the Specs set. I don't even think people run Specs on Dragapult in Uber's UU. They run more stall Dragapult, I think. Bit of a more desperate option, I think. Spectrier, kind of similar to Dragapult, I think. Also very fringe option. Much like Dragapult, obviously. Shadow Ball kills it. Although it doesn't necessarily need Specs to do so. It can either run Life Orb and completely one-shot it, or it could just like run Heavy Duty Boots and then Nasty Plot to do so. Although Spectrier is kind of... it's kind of fallen off. I don't want to say it's completely fallen off. Like, I know there's like some people who use it, but yeah, Spectrier is more obscure. And last but not least, I have Urshifu, aka King Gambit's little brother. It's still an option that you can use against Necrozma. Choice Band Sucker Punch still one-shots it. Wicked Blow as well. It is an option, of course. Not nearly as good as King Gambit, I think, for pretty obvious reasons, but it is like, it is usable, right? Out of everything I've listed so far, it's the most obscure option to counter Necrozma, but it is usable again. Although it's probably the worst counter to it, I think. I mean, check. Sorry, I conflate both check and counter. I apologize, but yeah. So my point with that being, there are checks to Necrozma and counters, and there are exactly 2 Pokemon that can wall Necrozma, which is not a lot, but it is better than 0. So take that as you will. In conclusion, should Necrozma-Dawn-Wings be banned from Uber's UU? Well, if I were able to vote right now, right, and I was put in the council, and they asked me, hey, do you think Necrozma needs the boot? And I'll say, you know, I'm on like there's a spectrum, right? You've got number 1, which is do not ban, and you've got 10, which is please ban. This is absolutely broken. I sit probably in like a 7.5 out of 10 on the scale. As I've went over with Necrozma, it's like there's some like absolutely pretty insane sets that you can run on it. Again, Meteor Beam plus Power Herb is insanely busted, and access to Trick Room, and access to a whole bunch of potential utility moves as well. Honestly, if it was banned from the tier, I wouldn't be too upset about it, honestly. It's a bit restrictive on team building. Like, you really are kind of limited to what you have. Like, obviously you can deal with it. Like, unlike Zekrom, which nothing could deal with that thing, but yeah. You can deal with Necrozma, obviously, but to deal with Necrozma requires more restrictive team building, I think. There's only like a handful of stuff that can like put a dent in Necrozma, right? As I've went over before. Overall, I would like to see it go though. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy this one. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment on what you think the council should do with Necrozma, or if you disagree with anything I've said, or want to correct me on anything I've said, as I tend to spread misinformation on the internet by accident. And yeah, hopefully I can upload more videos this year. But yeah, have a good one, boys. Peace out.